The bearing clearance of the crankshaft and connecting rod plays a vital role in ensuring that the engine runs smoothly. With the plastic gauge, a thin calibrated plastic strip, it is easy to take precise measurements of the bearing clearance and gap dimensions. This is used wherever measurements with a micrometer are not possible, for example crank bearings and connecting rod bearings. After removing the bearing caps, the surface of the shaft and bearing shell is cleaned. After preparation, a suitable plastic gauge strip is laid down across the sliding surface. The plastic gauge strip can be fixed to the shaft using some grease to ensure that it stays in position. A little silicone spray can be applied to the bearing surface to prevent the measuring strip from sticking. The bearing cap is now fitted and tightened to the tightening torque specified by the engine manufacturer. Be sure not to turn the shaft during the measurement, as this would smear the filament and distort the measuring result. After removing the bearing cap, the bearing clearance can be measured using the measuring scale provided. The wider the measuring strip when pressed, the smaller the bearing clearance. As a guide value, bearing clearances are 1/2000th of the shaft diameter. However, it is recommended to always determine the exact values using the catalog data. To calculate the maximum clearance, subtract the minimum journal diameter and twice the thickness of the engine bearing shell from the maximum diameter of the housing bore. The minimum clearance is calculated through the minimum housing bore, the maximum journal diameter, and twice the thickness of the engine bearing shell. The bearing clearance determined using the plastic gauge should lie within the calculated values. If the bearing clearance is too great, this must be compensated for with oversized bearing shells. Excessive bearing clearance results in a greater amount of oil passing through. If the delivery rate of the oil pump is no longer sufficient, the oil pressure is reduced and the oil supply to the engine is no longer guaranteed. This can lead to increased wear at the affected bearing positions and other bearing positions, and at worst can result in fretting of the bearings. Before assembling the bearing, the plastic gauge strip must be completely removed and fresh oil applied to the bearing position. Plastic gauge measuring strips are available from your local KOLBENSCHMIDT dealer under item number 5009880. Further information and tips on this and other technical topics can be found on our homepage www.ms-motorservice.com.